Just walk away. Always. Whenever it comes down to any conflict or confrontation with a woman, it is always better to just simply walk away. I love that saying. I love it because it holds so much irrelevance in so many different ways and scenarios that it's not even funny. I want to talk to you about a story, and this is something that a lot of people would say. A lot of men will say this, and even women. When it comes down to a confrontation, never defend yourself, don't argue with them, and always walk away. Now, in some cases, this can be very helpful, but in some cases, it can be completely irrelevant, because even when you attempt to do this, they still want to pull you into their delusion and into their game, whatever the twisted game it is that they're trying to play with you. Stay away from this mindset. And the one thing that people need to be aware of are spiteful, manipulative, evil bitches. Let me just throw this disclaimer out here, because I want nobody coming at me saying, don't call women bitches. I'm not calling women bitches. I'm talking about spiteful, manipulative, evil bitches, not women. So, with that being said, I want to talk about this little story. Back in 1999, a pool that I used to go to when I was still in high school, actually, it was the summer of 99, so high school was out at the time. I met this girl. I was 16 at the time, and so was she. She was a couple of months older than me. A West Indian girl. Now, we got the vibing for a bit, and, I started to see that the opportunity was there for it to be able to go somewhere. So I said, why not? And I asked her out. Now, I remember seeing her there with a baby at the pool all the time. I thought this might have been her little sister or niece or nephew or whoever. I wasn't sure. Up until the day I actually asked her to be my girlfriend, that's when I found out exactly just who that baby was, which was her daughter. So I didn't pay it much mind, and I said, okay, no big deal. Mistakes happen. That was red flag number one. The same day that I asked her to be my girlfriend, I remember seeing her talking to this other Jamaican guy in the pool. Now, she was sitting on his lap, facing in front of him, with him in between her legs, sitting right beside me, and now looks me right in my eye and asks me, "You jealous?" Wow. Okay, so me being young, dumb, naive, and wet behind the ears, I said, you know what, let me not worry about this. Maybe, I don't want to look like a fool and overreact. So I paid it no mind. I just simply said no. We only went out a few times, the movies one time, and that's pretty much it, and at the pool. And I remember I would be there with a couple of my homeboys, and she was there with her sisters and her sisters' friends or their boyfriends or whoever they were. And the last day that we actually were together, and the relationship wasn't even a relationship, as a matter of fact, because it didn't go nowhere. We didn't even see each other outside of the pool or at the movies that one time that we went. But I remember she was there, and there was several different times she was actually flirting around or play fighting or just being disrespectful with this Jamaican dude. Now, before I even get to that part of the story, immediately after she was done sitting on his lap, she gets up and he slaps her on her booty. And I was like, wow, okay. I'm just thinking in my head, like, that's odd. I wasn't expecting that one, but like I said, me being me at the time, I didn't want to overreact and say anything, so I just left it alone. Several other times have went by when she was flirting around with this guy in the pool, and a couple of, maybe a week or 2 weeks after that, it was to a point where it was getting out of control. And her own sisters came up to me and said, listen, you need to check that bitch. She's disrespecting you right now, and you need to check her. What was funny was every other guy that was in that pool that knew who she was said, yo, I can't stand that bitch. And this is what they told me. I can't stand that bitch. her sister's getting in my ear telling me, you need to check her. She's out of line. You need to check that bitch. So I said, okay. I said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to man up. So as she was flirting around with homeboy, I approached her in the pool and I said, this is very disrespectful and you need to make a decision as far as what it is that you want to do. I said it somehow amongst those lines. I don't remember exactly word for word what I said. This was more than 12 years ago. But as I told her this, she comes back and throws, well, my family doesn't really like you too much, so it's best that we don't be together. Okay. I can give you what you want. That's not a problem at all. Now, we parted ways without any exchangement of foul words or dirty looks or any type of animosity. And I just said, okay, cool. Enjoy your life. Now, this is where I say, and this is where I confront this saying where it's always best to walk away. The Steve Wilkos show perpetuates this, and in some cases, maybe some men think it's easy to do that. Maybe in some cases, they have just been fortunate enough not to encounter these type of women. But getting back to my story, and this is another area where I say, in some cases, you got to wonder a lot of shit. So now, as I get out of the pool and I'm there with my homeboys now, and we're standing outside of the pool by the entrance toward the locker rooms, she now comes out and walks over to my homeboy and tries to pull him off to the side and says, hey, why don't you rub some lotion on my legs? I'm like, that's a little odd. And he's like, no, I can't do that. And she says, why not? And he says, because you were going out with my boy, and I'm not going to disrespect him like that. So then she asks him, well, why don't you come with me to a party one day? And he's like, no, I'm not doing that unless my boy can come along. Now, this is what I mean when I say it's always best to walk away. In this scenario, the girl got what she wanted pretty much. There was no reason for her to continue doing what she did. But even when I walked away, didn't even give her as much as a foul look, she still proceeded to do what she wanted to do. Not only was she blatantly disrespecting me in the pool, but now felt that she was going to try to come in between a good friendship and try to ruin friendships on top of that. This is what I'm talking about when it comes down to spiteful bitches. And a lot of different cases, at one point I was one of these naive guys that always thought whenever a woman got her ass whooped or beaten by some dude, that it was always the dude's fault. And I would instantly or immediately blame the dude or blame the man. You shouldn't have put your hands on a woman. Over the years and just dealing with certain experiences, that has changed or completely altered my perspective of that. Not saying that it's right for a woman to get her ass kicked, but when I hear of a woman getting her ass handed to her on a silver platter, I have to stop and wonder now. I have to now wonder what were the dynamics of that situation. What caused it to happen? I want to know both sides of the stories. Because for the most part, most women will portray as if they're innocent victims and as if they've done no wrong themselves. And usually what women will do, since they can't physically fuck you up, is they'll emotionally and mentally torment you, when they can easily walk away. And it's funny, everyone tells the man that we should just walk away. How come for the most part, the women simply don't walk away? And even in some cases, when you try to walk away from a woman, and just because you decided you wanted no further parts of her drama or bullshit, she now wants to proceed to go to the extreme to keep you in her situation, to keep you dwelling on her bullshit. I remember a friend of mine told me that he was dealing with a girl, and he decided that he wanted to leave the girl and stop dating her, whatever the case was. She starts crying. Her mother calls the police. The man didn't put his hands on her. He didn't do a single thing. The girl got in front of the door and tried to block him from leaving. The cops came and they were ready to arrest him. She pretty much dropped the case because I guess they decided to stay together. As some time went on and problems reoccurred again, he decided, I'm finally done with this. And after the case was dismissed and he chooses to leave, the girl now decides to reopen the case and have the man locked up. Now, whether he was locked up or not, I'm not sure. But the fact that the case was reopened, that was something that you really have to question. How many men have experienced this when you talk to a woman or you've been dealing with a woman for a certain period of time, and when you decide to end it, You now come outside to find your car keyed up or a brick thrown through your windshield or some crazy misfortunate bullshit like that. Like I said, it leads me to wonder what exactly goes on when these women find themselves in their situations or when they wind up getting beat up. I have to wonder now. I can't sit back and say that women are victims anymore. And this is something that I stopped being at the conclusion of and stopped being so naive about, is thinking that so many women are victims in so many cases when they're clearly not. Even when they do things to put themselves in harmful situations and get the same harm that they wished upon themselves in the first place. Another story. Now, this might be a bit of a long video, so I might have to chop this up into a couple of pieces.